You're watching Soulful Discussions.
All right, so hi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
How did we meet today?
I was exiting class and you approached me.
Absolutely, okay. And what did I approach you about? What are we doing today?
That you were gonna interview me for a little bit about some questions. And
Okay. And do you remember the topics? I gave you 3 topics.
it was something about did you say feet?
Feet. Yep.
Feet, and then fertility.
Mental health
Mental health.
and reflexology.
Reflexology. Yeah, that's
absolutely. So let me ask you this: when you hear the word feet, what do you think about? First thing goes to your mind.
Feet is like my own feet. Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
You think about like self-care, like anything like that?
Not really. I just think it was more like walking and
Okay.
going places basically.
Well, especially on the campus, right?
Yeah.
You do a lot of walking class to class. So today we're gonna ask you some questions. It'll be your thoughts about feet. You just feel free to answer however you like. Okay. What about mental health? When you hear that, what do you think about?
I think about like the stigma towards it, like especially like in our society nowadays. I feel like it's known, but not a lot of people like to actually talk about it because it makes them uncomfortable and just acknowledging that there's an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think especially from like minority like households, right? Because like for my mom and my dad, like we didn't really talk about anything like that. Like as a matter of fact, like when you'd say you had something like this, you'd be okay, just keep going.
Yeah,
So I think that is definitely something that's interesting. Today we're going to talk a little bit about stress and anxiety, kind of like how you deal with it, and then I'll kind of have a couple tips just in case like you need something new for how to deal with it. Okay. And then lastly, reflexology. You ever heard of that before? Does that sound familiar?
No, I've never heard that.
Okay. So I'm going to give you some information today about reflexology. You just tell me what your thoughts are about it, how you feel about it. Okay. Sound good? All right. Let's start with the first question. How do you think we can improve mental health awareness around the world? Like, what are some things we could do?
I'd say the first thing is just having open conversations about it because even like bringing up the topic about mental health, I feel like it's really hard to talk to people about it because it might make them uncomfortable because it makes them think about their own issues that they might not have thought about in the past. And I think making like mental health like medication or just even like therapy a little bit more accessible, especially for minorities and people who come from like lower income families, like especially because therapy and medication in general is just really expensive.
Yeah.
And like me myself even, like I've been trying to find therapy and it's just really hard because it's so expensive and you need like this and that, you know.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah, and there's I talked to a lady before who was on my channel, and she mentioned that like her brother was somebody who needed like he's dealing with some things with anxiety and depression. He couldn't even be seen here, so they had to go all the way to Mexico just to find like they wouldn't like even try to like look at him here at any type of like therapy for anything like that. So they had to drive all the way to Mexico to try to like get him somebody he could talk to. So it was very interesting for me to hear that because I'm like, why? It should be something that's easily attainable, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just fill in the blank here on this one. The world would be better if.
If there's access to like healthcare, affordable housing, just a better world, to be honest. Like people actually cared about other people, like equality and stuff like that.
That's very true. If a friend or loved one was struggling with depression or anxiety, is there anything that you would do or say to them to like help you?
I'd first try to like get them to try to maybe open up if they'd be okay with that, because I know a lot of people, they say like they're going through things, but sometimes they might not be comfortable with actually talking about it. And I understand that because it's like, personally, sometimes I don't want to tell people everything because it's like I don't want to burden you with that. So I would get that, but I would also just kind of like, if they don't want to talk about it too much, like kind of, if they're already like my friend, I would try to take them out somewhere where I know they like it and kind of just get
maybe something fun or something like that, right?
To like de-stress them and like kind of
distraction
get their
or something.
mind off.
Absolutely, that's a good one. In this question, you don't have to go too in depth with the answer, but what are some things that bring you anxiety? And like when you feel that anxiety happening, what do you do to like counteract how you're feeling in the moment?
Some things that give me anxiety is kind of like being in a new place, like something I'm not familiar with, because it's like I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know who I'm gonna meet, who I'm gonna talk to. But something I do is kind of try to like slow myself down. Like sometimes I try to like calm myself by like doing deep breaths and kind of just like taking the time to be like, okay, even though it's something different, something new, I'll be okay. Like I'm not gonna,
I don't know do you know what the term for that is?
No.
So it's called grounding. Like it's actually something that you can do, like when it's like you feeling overwhelmed, you got all these different things going on, but just focusing on like kind of you said, you're breathing, like hey, I'm okay, like nothing's happening or anything like that. Those are like really important tools. So like you're already doing it, you don't know the term, but I just gave you the term. There you go. Yeah, so there's different things you can do for that too. Like so I do the same thing when I'm feeling like that. Like large crowds and small areas make me feel like that. So what I'll do is wherever I'm at, I'll start focusing on one thing. Like oh, okay, that wall is blue over there. Like you know, I'm listening to this type of music or whatever, and that'll start to calm me down slowly but surely. So yeah, that's actually a really good one that you just mentioned. If you could change one thing about yourself, and it doesn't have to be something physical, it could just be anything you wanted it to be, maybe a behavior you have, is there anything you would change?
I'd say being a little bit more confident because I wouldn't consider myself necessarily confident because, like, I have things I want to say, but sometimes it's just hard for me to actually say it because I get nervous because I'm like, well, what if they think this? Because I'm too busy thinking about how the other person will feel rather than myself.
Yeah, and I think it's good. So like you're doing something like this because like these are your opinions, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, you don't have to worry about how everybody. It's how you feel about it. Absolutely. Okay, let's get into this question right now, and I want you to fill in the blank here. When I think about my feet, I feel.
I just like that I take advantage of them because sometimes they take me everywhere, you know. And sometimes I feel like it's important to take care of them because if say like you get a infection or something, you know, it's gonna be hard to walk and get places.
Yeah, a lot of people like sometimes like really underrate that in terms of like when it comes to your feet. Like, I remember me and that girl wearing the same sweater. So shocking. Yeah, but sometimes we can like underrate like that part of us, right? We focus on everything else, hair, make sure we make sure we put on like chapstick if our lips are chapped, but then when it comes to our feet, sometimes we're just like,
yeah,
I just have them.
about it.
And so I always think about. I was told this parable a while back, like when I was little, but about the guy who was complaining about not having shoes, right? And he was, I don't have any shoes, and like I'm so upset about that. And then he changed his way of thinking when he looked over and saw the guy without feet, because it's like it brings things into perspective for you, like that you need that, like shoes. Sure, you need shoes as well, but you don't need them as much as you need your feet. Your feet, you need that even more. So I thought that was a really cool one. I always try to like mention that when I go out. Absolutely. Let me ask you this. Have you ever received compliments about your feet? Has anybody ever told you have nice feet?
No, to be honest, no.
Never happened to you before. No. So let's say it was a rare occasion and that did happen. You ran sandals, somebody said to you, hey, I think you have nice feet. How would you feel about that?
I would be very surprised because me personally, I don't really like my feet, like at least how they look without, my shoes and my socks.
Are you like self-conscious?
A little bit, because like for the longest, like my family has always like made some sort of comment because like one of my toes is a little bit longer. Like I think my middle one is a little bit longer than most people. So they're like, they always point it out. So I'm like,
You know that there's a name for that toe alignment. I'll mention it to you a little bit later, but there's a name for that, so you don't have to feel ashamed about that or anything like that. There's a lot of people in the world that have that same type of toe alignment. In terms of compliments you receive from men and women, right? Is there a group you prefer the compliment more from? Like if they give you the compliment, you're like, man, yeah, I appreciate that one more.
To be honest, more women. I think just mostly because of my own like personal identity and sexual identity.
Oh, okay.
So it's like it's a little bit more comforting, and then versus with men, I always feel like there's some sort of something behind it.
Underlying like things. Like he's only saying that to me because he wants this.
Yeah. So I'm like,
I get that all the time, so I completely understand. In terms of compliments you receive, right? Is there a certain compliment that when you get that type of compliment, you're like, man, that really made my day. It made me feel good. Anything like that?
I'd say when they compliment my smile, like when I'm not wearing my mask.
Yeah.
Or like when they say like, oh, you just have like a nice vibe. Like it makes me feel good because I try really hard to make myself like
a positive,
and like approachable. Because I don't want to be seen as like being like sometimes that's why I don't like wearing my mask. Because sometimes when I would get approachable, like you kind of see mean at first, but then once I start talking to you, you're cool.
You seem pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh no.
That's interesting, man. Yeah, I mean, to me, I like the vibe one too, the energy. Yeah. Like when somebody says like you have positive energy, it makes me feel good. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. In terms of pedicures, how often do you get pedicures?
Maybe like 2 times a year, depending on
special occasions, like something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Have you ever heard of a medical pedicure before? Alright, so medical pedicures when you go see a podiatrist, a specialist of the foot, they actually take a look at your feet to make sure your toenails grow correctly. They check your toe alignment to make sure your toe alignment is right. They'll check your feet for like dead skin, fungus, and they do all the work there with like medical grade equipment. What would your thoughts be on seeing somebody like that who could give you like insight into what's happening with your feet? Like tell you like, hey, you need to use this type of lotion, or you should cut your nails this way. How would you feel about that?
I would actually be really down to go because when I was younger, even now sometimes I still get like ingrown infections, and I think it could be because of how my toes are, like my toenails.
Yeah, you may cut them the wrong way, and so I think that would be really good for you to go see someone like that because they'll tell you the grain of how you're supposed to cut them. Like, make sure you cut it this way and not that way. So that's a really good one. In terms of shoes, how often you wear open-toe shoes, sandals, flip-flops, things like that?
Like when I'm at home, sometimes like at home, I don't really like to walk around barefoot. I like to wear like maybe open-toe like chanclas, like sandals. Like, you know, like the Adidas.
We know about the chanclas, I've had several women on my channel talk about the flying chanclas, and I'm always like, oh yeah. Absolutely. How often do you go barefoot? No shoes?
I guess like maybe when I'm about to go to sleep, or maybe like when I'm out of the shower, I guess.
Okay. Have you ever heard of earthing and grounding before?
Is it like when you're a little bit more in tune with like the earth and kind of barefoot and like that?
So it's like going barefoot in like grass, dirt, sand. Like people do that to like you said, feel like one with earth. Something that's supposed to be like, it can declutter a lot of like mental space. Maybe you have clogged up, or maybe you had a long day at school, you're exhausted mentally, you're like, man, I just feel like tired. You can go out, like if you have a front yard or backyard, stand in your grass, and what you do in that moment, kind of like I was talking about earlier with grounding, you just focus on what's happening in that moment. You focus on like, okay, right now I'm feeling the grass against my feet, it's soft, the wind is like very cool, and like you focus on those things, and it's supposed to like help unclog mental space. It's actually interesting because somebody explained it to me like this. When you're younger, when you would like go out and play, sometimes you wouldn't worry about having shoes on. You just go out and you do it, and it's like almost a feeling of freedom, right?
Yeah.
Doing that now as an adult, when you just go out and you ground and stand in grass, will give you that same feeling that you have as a kid, where it's like a freedom, like you just in that moment, you're not focused on anything else. What would your thoughts be on trying something like that?
I would honestly be pretty like down to do that because I do remember like having that type of experience when I was younger, and I remember like when that would happen, I would just not be thinking about anything.
You don't focus on anything else.
Yeah, just enjoying everything because it always happens to be really nice that day. Like,
exactly.
You know, just really pretty and like beautiful.
Exactly. So when I go out, I always try to give that information because to me, that right there is very important. Like especially for people who may deal with anxiety and stress and stuff like that. That's something that doesn't cost you anything. You can just go out and do that in your front yard, your backyard, go to a park or whatever like that. Absolutely.
I should do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm serious, man. Like if you do have situations like that come up, that would be something really cool for you to do because you could see like the difference it is from like being in shoes that are like restraining and kind of constrict like your movement to just being free and just being able to experience that. It'd be really cool. All right, so now in this moment right now, can we see what your feet look like? I'd like to give you some feedback on your toes that you were talking about, how one toe is bigger than the other. I could give you some feedback on that right now.
I mean,
how about just one foot? Can we get you to do one?
I guess.
All right, cool.
Wait, would it be on camera?
Yeah, don't worry about that though. We're not here. We're not judging or anything like that. If you're getting ready to say like, I haven't had my toes done, don't worry about that. It's more of just like I'm gonna explain to you the mental health side of it. Like once we get past this part right here. So first of all, what size shoe do you wear?
This is 7 or 8.5.
8.5. So okay, so you're like kind of like in the middle. You're about 5'4".
Actually no, I'm like 5'2".
Oh wow,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
Okay.
All right. And so.
Here are my toes.
All right. And so I don't know if you know what that's called. That's
like the toe.
Yeah, the toe alignment. That's called an Grecian toe alignment. It's a Greek toe.
Oh really?
Yeah. So like if your bigger toe is bigger, it's called an Egyptian toe alignment, which means like you may have some heritage from there. You may have some Greek heritage based on that. So I don't know, but you may. Can we see the bottom? You mind just doing that for us? Okay. All right. And so let me ask you this: How did you feel in terms of doing that? Like, was it something that was like uncomfortable or anything like that? Did you feel some kind of way about it, or?
Not necessarily. It's just I kind of remember how it brought up like
the insecurities.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this right now: you don't need to feel insecure about your feet because you don't have bad feet. Your feet are actually very nice. You have a Grecian toe alignment. You know what it's called now, a Greek toe. So don't feel like any type of way about that anymore. So let me give you like the mental health of what like got me started in my channel. Okay, so during quarantine, I was actually watching another guy's channel, and he was talking about exposure therapy. Are you familiar with that?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so exposure therapy is for people who feel like uncomfortable or in certain situations you like to stay in your comfort zone. You're like, I'm not gonna move out of this area because I'm comfortable and I don't like how that makes me feel, right? So when I started to think about that and hear about that, I was like, man, in my life, I've been a chronic overthinker. I overthink every situation. Like it could be something as simple as like what to drink, right? I'll like put so much thought into it, and it's like not every situation requires you to think so much, right? So I was like, I want to get better at it. This seems like a perfect way to do it. And so what I wanted to do is I had the idea, because during quarantine, a lot of women became famous for like foot modeling and stuff. That was like a thing, right? So I was like, what if I started a channel where I go up and I approach women who I just met. They don't know me. I don't know them. To see if they can go through and practice some of that exposure therapy by like doing something as simple as just showing feet real quick. Is that something that they could deal with? Do they get uncomfortable? What is the thought process there, right? And so I get many reactions. I get some women who are completely open. They're just like, yeah, sure, no worries. And some women who are overthinking and they're like, wait, what's happening? And some women who are like, no. And the whole point of my channel is to show all those reactions, because what I want to try to do is help create a more positive conversation around feet. Some people can tend to think that it's like a weird thing or like it's strange or whatever like that. I want people just to be able to talk about it, kind of how me and you have been talking, and like, has anything weird happened? Is anything crazy happening? So I'm trying to do that through my channel and my interactions with women. What are your thoughts about that? Kind of what I'm doing. How do you feel about it?
I like that, because especially because you're not like, I don't feel like scared to talk to you. Like I feel comfortable. I feel like this is an open space where I can talk and not feel
and we're in public.
Yeah,
so it's like there's nothing like, it's not like I was like, hey, let's go behind us. You know, it's like we're in public, so like nothing's gonna happen crazy like that. Absolutely. Let's talk about reflexology, okay, and then we'll let you get up out of here. So reflexology is about those different pressure points you actually have in your hands and your feet, right? Those pressure points actually like connect to different parts of your body, your organs, things like that. So like, for example, through like massage, through acupuncture, through acupressure, you can actually like alleviate like stress and tension to like various parts of your body. So I don't know if you've heard that before, but like for people who deal with migraines, right, there's actually a portion of your hands and feet you can massage that alleviates the tension you're feeling in those moments. There's actually a piercing you can get in your ear. It does the exact same thing too. What are your thoughts about that now that I've kind of explained it to you, what reflexology is? Do you think it's a good thing? Is that something maybe you would try in the future, maybe if you're dealing with something? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's a good thing, actually. I feel like it's a little bit more like natural remedy type thing, because it's something
holistic,
that you're, holistic, like something that you already have in your body, and like you're just taking like pressure and like, you know, just
Exactly.
And I've heard that about the migraines, and they were saying that it's something like around here.
It's right there. Yep.
Yeah, and then ever since then, sometimes like when I get really stressed and like I have a headache, I'll kind of just start to kind of massage it, and I'll just be like, okay, I'm okay, and then, you know, that
Absolutely.
Helps.
That's really good. I'm glad that you know that, man. And if you ever, like, let's say if you're really experiencing it bad, your girlfriend or whoever, you can have them massage the base of your big toe. Right below that is another pressure point for that. It attaches right to your head. So that's something that you can do to help you helpful. Absolutely. So let's wrap up the interview. In terms of my approach, right? When I came up to you, I asked you to do the interview. Did you feel my approach was good? Was it bad? How did you feel about it?
No, it was good. I honestly thought you were another student.
Yo, I'm here to get transcripts, like I said. Yeah.
Yeah, like I thought you were just gonna ask me, like, hey, do you know where like so and so building is?
Yeah.
I was gonna be like, oh, yeah.
Absolutely. In terms of the interview from start to finish, right? Could you see how everything was going in the line? Did it make sense to you? Did you learn anything new?
Yeah, I did actually, especially like, you know, taking more of a holistic and more grounding approach, especially because I learned some new words.
Absolutely, man. Like it's like now you know what to call it when you're doing it. Like I'm grounding right now. Absolutely. The last thing I always ask from the people who do the interviews with me, something you can say to the channel that could be helpful from like a mental health standpoint. Maybe it's a life lesson you learned, some wise words that maybe somebody shared with you. Just whatever you have for us. Don't overthink it. Just whatever you have.
I just say like take advantage of like this type of scenery. Like when you see it, like just kind of take off your like any sort of social media, phone, like just kind of take the time to kind of embrace this nature, you know? Because I feel like it's not gonna be too long that we'll have it.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Well, thank you so much. Definitely appreciate you stopping to do this interview with us. All right, and we hope that you have a great one. Okay. All right.